Welcome to Anti-Fiction. This is a weekly nonfiction podcast where each week I, Christian Yates, select a theme, and then I invite two guest hosts to come and talk about stories related to that theme. My guest hosts this week are getaway driver Joy Zader.
Hello.
And partner in crime Andy Mattingly.
Hello.
So our theme for this week is weird love. And I think maybe I should apologize in advance to any listeners who participate in the various kinds of weird love that I'm going to discuss. But I specifically chose, by the way, not to include any stories about furries after we talked about it. I know, but I was
oh my god, I can't believe I didn't do a single furry story.
Let
me just start with my stance on furries.
I need you to understand that that's where I started, and then I started looking into things, and I was like, that's furries the most too. Normal thing that I looked into was furries. That is the least kinky thing that I discovered while researching these stories for this week. So
how much of it was like for your own personal use?
Listen, there were lots of Google searches. There were a handful of Pornhub searches. Shout out to Pornhub.com. You can definitely sponsor this podcast if you want. But not that much. So my first story for weird love is it's a doozy. But it's the kind of like, it's more never tell me the odds kind of love. Okay, right? Okay. Let me set you up with that. Blanche Dumas was born on the island of Martinique in 1860, and Dumas had a condition classified in the Anomalies and Curiosities of Medicine as modified duplication of the lower body.
She got two lower bodies?
Yeah, 4 legs.
Sorry, keep
sort
going.
Well, 3. So Blanche had a broad pelvis with 2 imperfectly formed legs and a third leg attached to her pelvis. And she had 2 sets of breast, one that was well developed in the typical spot on her body, and then another set which was less developed near her pelvis. She also had 2 vaginas, both of which allegedly had developed equally sensitively, right? So equal sensitivity in both of her vaginas. That's going to come up later.
Oh my god.
I literally can't.
That's a dream, honestly. You're like, wow, 2 for the price of 1?
No, just the one.
My next question was going to be so
just
gross.
the one. I did read a little bit about a different guy who I thought was connected to this story that turned out not to be connected with this story. He did have 2 buttholes.
Did they marry?
They did not. But but he turned out to not be connected with this story the way that I thought that he was. He just lived around the same time and also had 3 legs. Anyway, so her sexual appetite was said to be very pronounced, and she often entertained men with both of her vaginas. Now, I don't know if that means like 2 guys were entertained at once, or if like one guy like, I don't know, like straddled her third leg in the middle, because like it was like in the middle, right? But like in the back, and like went to one side and then to the other. I don't know what it means, but the picture in my head is probably far better than anything that actually ever happened. But
my body count would be so much higher if I did vaginas. Are you kidding? That's so efficient.
So eventually she moved to Paris and became a courtesan. Now, around the same time, there was a man by the name of Juan Baptista dos Santos, who was born in Portugal in 1843, and he had a similar condition. He had 2 extra legs, which were fused together as one, and 2 penises. I think that you can probably see where this is going.
Match made in heaven.
I found a quote from Kogits.com, which is just a wonderful quote for this story. They say, quote, "Both penises functioned perfectly." And
I was wondering.
That's my favorite quote from this entire show so far. Like, all the episodes, that's my favorite quote.
Both penises functioned perfectly.
You know, and that's just how it should be. You know, every guy out there with 2 penises, I hope that your penises both function perfectly. So Santos would allegedly use both penises during sex. He would finish with one and then move on and use the other one.
What?
Right, and I'm
Talk
like,
about fucking stamina.
Yeah, the goddamn stamina on this guy. Right.
And then while he's with the second one, the first one's catching back up, taking a breather,
and then
ready
he's
to go.
like, yeah, it's just, yeah.
It's a marathon, not a sprint, ladies.
It is the never-ending story. It's what it is. Yeah, and his penis is the dragon that the kid rides on. Whoop.
Nope.
Yep. Too far.
Nope.
Anyway, so Santos refused circus work, but he exhibited himself to medical authorities like on his own. So he at one point turned down a very large contract from a circus. They were like, "Come be part of our sideshow," and he goes, "Fuck that. All these doctors want to look at my junk."
Yeah, that's way better.
Yeah, right? So he was his own agent and toured around and let doctors look at his junk. It was on
if
one
I had
of
2
these
dicks,
tours.
I would let anybody look at my junk. I just want to make
For
that
sure, right? Like Double Dick Guy from Reddit. Do you guys remember Double Dick Guy?
Yes.
It was a fake.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But I mean...
But it was a good fake.
When you heard that there was a guy called Double Dick Guy on Reddit, you were like...
The pictures were very believable.
Well, the first picture was very believable, and then the second picture, he definitely used a different penis for his Photoshop job because it was much bigger.
I remember being shocked when it was fake, and then being embarrassed that I was shocked.
I mean, I guess, but the first picture was very believable because they were both flaccid penises, and I was like, all right, yeah, I could see a guy taking a picture of his 2 flaccid penises, and then the next one, they were both gigantic dicks.
Oh my god!
And you're like.
He's a grower.
Okay, well, all right. He's a hell of a grower.
Anyway.
So Santos toured around and exhibited himself to medical authorities, and it was on one of these tours that Santos and Dumas met, and they began a passionate yet brief love affair.
Brief?
Brief not in terms of how long it took each time they had sex.
Oh my god.
Brief in the time that they were together.
He knew that that's what I meant, and I'm shocked and confused.
So my second story it's a little bit smaller one.
Wait, what? That's the end of it?
Yeah, that's the end of it.
They just met briefly, hooked up?
They met briefly, and then they hooked up.
And then they were like, there's probably someone out there better for me than you?
It's a never tell me the odds kind of love story, because how many people suffer from diphalia, or clearly they had a parasitic twin who had part of their body manifested, but
like Dwight.
What are the odds that you and this other person at this time in history, this was the 1800s, meet each other and get it on? You've got 2 vaginas, he's got 2 penises. It's a match made in genital heaven.
And they were still there's someone out there better for me.
It's possible that it was just their tour schedules didn't line up the way that they needed. And
I mean, maybe, but I just...
Or maybe it's because he was 17 years older than her.
What?
She was God. Right? So she was listen, I like both of your dicks, but you're just too old for me.
All right, well, I'm on her side now.
Yeah, maybe it was just the age difference. He was I want to have children, and she was I just want to get fucked in both of my vaginas by two different guys at the same time. I don't know.
Who doesn't want that, honestly?
I don't even have a vagina, and I want that right now. But anyway, so my second story is a shorter one. But it might be weirder. So in January 2006, British millionaire Sharon Tendler got married at Dolphin Reef in the Israeli port of Elliot after a 15-year relationship with the apple of her eye, a bottlenose dolphin named Cindy.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Dolphins are the worst.
They're the only other species that have sex for pleasure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're the worst.
They have sex specifically with Sharon Tendler. No, that's not accurate. We'll get to that later.
It was a dolphin in that, like, weird science experiment that, like, tried to rape that woman, right?
Yeah.
She, like, lived with a
That was
dolphin
on
for, like...
an episode of The Dollop, I think.
I think so, yeah. She, like, lived with him in, like, this science experiment.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, trying to learn to communicate with dolphins. And...
It was like a flooded
it kept
house
trying to rape her.
laboratory.
Yeah. It kept trying to, like, fuck her. And then she was, like, you know, a person, so she's not interested in it. And then, to keep it, like, calm, she would just jerk it off all the time.
Yep.
It's
As you
just, do. Dolphins are the worst. Also, a dolphin bit my friend Sarah and left a scar on their hand. And I just have a vendetta now.
Well, you know, fuck all dolphins, but not in the way that sounds.
Not in the way that scientist did.
So British millionaire Sharon Tendler wore a white dress to the ceremony. She got down on one knee and gave Cindy a kiss and a piece of herring, and later said, "It's not a bad thing. It's just something that we did because I love him. But not in the way that you love a man. It's just a pure love that I have for this animal."
Yeah, I wouldn't fucking marry Draco, and I love him more than I love you.
You know, but it's not a pure love. This was a pure
What?
love. That
Nothing
Sharon
is more
had for
pure
this-
than the
this
love I have for
dolphin.
my cat. Where is he? Is he hearing this?
But okay, and so I have another quote from her. She said, "I have made a dream come true, and I am not a pervert." Right?
If you ever have to be
Yes.
like, I just want to point out that I'm not a pervert,
Right?
100% you're a pervert.
That is 100% like saying, "Listen, I'm
Yeah,
not
was it
racist, but
her pervert
it's the
dream.
same. I'm not a pervert, but I love this fucking dolphin."
No.
Like,
And also I'm a pervert.
I also read an article from a Christian Science blog that I loved, but did not include any quotes from because it got really biblical really quick. But the fact that it got publicized enough to be on a Christian Science blog, cracks me the fuck up.
Well,
So this is my third story.
okay.
And I want to preface this with saying, I get it, but half of this is the worst.
I'm so stressed out about it. I'm going to spend the whole time going, what does he think is the worst? And, like, being afraid that you don't think the right part is the worst.
You'll know which bit I think is normal and which bit I get to that is the worst. You'll know. There's a very clear line that we will get to. So, first of all, this guy's name is Dave Cat. That is not his, birth name, is not his legal name, but it's a nickname that he goes by, and that's what everybody fucking calls him now. I could not find any record of his actual name. So, Dave Cat purchased his first ever real doll in 2000 and named her Sidor, also called She-Chan. The two are not legally married, but they do have matching wedding bands that read, "Synthetic Love Lasts Forever."
Damn true. That's so deep.
He has appeared with Sidor on My Strange Addiction and on a BBC documentary called Guys and Dolls.
What?
Yeah.
Play on words.
It's a documentary about guys who are in love with real dolls, I guess. I didn't watch it. but
watch it?
I did not because I read this story instead, and I don't want to watch it. So he said his reasons for buying Sador were, quote, 70% sex, 30% companionship. Right? He'd always been attracted to synthetic humanoids, especially gynoids, which are robots in the shape of women, and figured a doll would dispel loneliness and also be great for sex at the same time. And he was quoted as saying, "I was right." Here's a quote from Dave Cat. This may be where you might find the line that I was referring to.
Oh, up to this was okay with you?
Parts of it.
Just making sure.
Parts of it. I did include some bits that it's a little weird. But here's the quote where it's solidified in my mind that Dave Cat has gone beyond.
All right.
The much larger part of their appeal is that they're humans, but they don't possess any of the unpleasant qualities that organic flesh and blood humans have.
Oh, no, like being able to consent or not.
A synthetic will never lie to you, cheat on you, criticize you, or be otherwise disagreeable. It's rare enough to find organics who don't have something going on with them.
Organics.
And being able to make a partner of one is rarer still.
Oh, man. My favorite thing about you is how disagreeable you are.
Person, which is a relationship with a real person, which is probably
He has. I looked into that. He's had relationships
He's had
with organics.
relationships.
Yes. And he described those relationships as it wasn't so much that he was dating an organic woman, so much as he was the other man in the relationship, right? So, like, this woman would be in a relationship and then would cheat on her significant other
with this dude.
With Dave Cat.
And then he was like,
why
are all organic women
his
liars?
father was like the really aggressively assertive type, and he didn't want to be that kind of person, so he never asserted himself to tell anybody, I wish that you would consider me as a boyfriend. So instead, he would just leave it how it was and then get sick of it and be like, I can't do this anymore. And about that time, his friend was like, you ever heard of a fucking real doll? And he was like, I've always been really turned on by synthetic humanoids. What is this real doll you speak of? And he saved up and spent $6,000 on this real doll. And then when he opens the box, because at this point it's a sex toy, right? Mm-hmm. He opens the box and is immediately struck by how beautiful she is.
Oh, no. Oh, my God.
I hate that I have started doing this when I've talked about this story to other people before now. I hate that I'm calling the doll she.
That is actually...
keep doing it.
That is going to come up in one of my stories later.
I'm excited.
So, let me just tell you that.
I get sex toys. I get it. I get a real doll. I get that. My slight automatonophobia does not permit me to have one, because if I wake up half asleep in the middle of the night and I look over in the corner of the room, there's a fucking person sitting in the corner, I'm gonna flip my shit. But I get it. That quote is where I stopped getting it.
Yeah,
that quote is some "are nice guys" nonsense.
That is just terrifying.
He says, "I want to be how I am and never change," and a real doll never asks me to.
Yeah, and also can't say no.
Yes.
Oh my God! Except for some.
I read an interview.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
So at least he's not subjecting a organic woman to that.
Right, and I'm happy for that. Yeah, we have saved an organic woman.
Yeah.
The time and trouble. Thank you, universe. Thank you, real doll.
Oh,
so I read an interview with this guy, and just every paragraph, I had to stop researching this story. Mm-hmm. I was just like, why? I read this whole interview with him, and there's a point in the interview where they ask him, like, you consider yourself married to this doll, but, like, isn't part of a marriage, like two people who have consented to being married. And he's like, oh, it's fine. I've come up with her whole backstory. And I'm like,
God.
She has a backstory. They met in a goth club in 2000.
Oh,
and
no.
They were married shortly after that. And they were at the point where that interview took place, they were planning something special for their 15th anniversary. Yes! That's not where the story ends.
I hope she dumps him.
Because in 2012, Dave Cat bought a second real doll.
Oh, my God.
Named Elena, or Lenka, who had seen Dave Cat and Sidor on Guys and Dolls.
Is this his other backstory, right?
Yes.
Okay, I was just making sure I wasn't losing it for a second.
And left her home country of Russia to move to England to be with them.
That's like the ultimate unicorn hunting.
Mm-hmm. Yes. He really does. And honestly, he recognizes the fact. He recognizes the fact that they're not living, breathing, organic creatures. He knows that. He said, and he's got this dichotomy that he doesn't think he'll ever be able to reconcile, where he knows that they're not living beings, but has this whole backstory for them as if they are. And so he's like, she leaves Russia and comes to him in Sidor, and like now they're a throuple. Yeah.
All right, that's my favorite word, but you're not going to get me on board with this.
They're polyamorous in the way.
Oh no, don't say that.
He is polyamorous with these two objects.
He isn't poly anything. It's just him.
He's polyobjectus. It's a new word I just invented for what Dave Cat is.
Being sexually attracted to objects is actually called objectum sexuality.
He's polyobjectum sexuality then.
Sexual. Yeah,
yeah, that's what sexual. I said. Yeah. So they are all together. I don't know how it works because well,
they can't all be together.
No,
the two of them aren't together,
I know that
right?
They can't.
They're
I tried
both with
to
him,
imagine it in my head,
in
he goes into some detail about their relationship. He talks about how, basically Elena is Sidor's girlfriend, but also his girlfriend. And, but he and Sidor are married, right? And it's good that she has someone to keep her company when he's not home all the time.
Is this man still alive?
Yes, this was 2013.
I just want to talk to him.
The article I read was from 2013. He maintains a Twitter feed for both of these real dolls, in addian to his own.
I can't even keep my own updated.
That's just a lot of time.
It's so much time. And, also he's got a 9 to 5. How does he have the time? He does, IT
Where does he work
He
specifically?
does IT work. Where does he work?
Yeah.
I need his address, his social. So, yeah, it's weird as shit. I had to stop looking into it. I couldn't do it anymore. He does IT work 9 to 5, then comes home and fucks two dolls and games with his friends and the
he
dolls.
Has friends?
Yeah, he's got friends. And
are they dolls or are they organics?
No, they're organics, right? and the interviewer asked what do your friends think about it? And he's like, it ranges from, I guess that's what Dave Cat gets up to tell your girls I say hi.
Wow.
Right? And I'm like, they're dolls. They don't care if you say hi.
If I ever met that guy, I'd be like,
they're real to him in the same way.
This entire world.
I guess they're real to him in the same way that my Pokemon and my Pokemon Go game are real to me. They are real to him.
Wow.
I guess, but I'm not trying to fuck my Pokemon.
Oh man.
Maybe you just didn't get to know them well enough yet.
I guess. I mean, with names no, I can't think of a sexy Pokemon name.
I caught an Abra today. It was so cute. I wouldn't have sex with it, but it was just chilling. I liked it.
But so anyway, so they have an open relationship, Dave Cat and these three dolls, so long as
they tell each other
have sex with anyone other than synthetic women.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So what if he walked into his apartment one day and one of his friends was
Fucking his real doll?
his real?
Excellent question. I imagine his friend is not going to have the knowledge on how to carefully have sex with a real doll, because evidently they tear all the fucking time.
Really?
Yeah, they tear because, like, they used to be made with some kind of silicone that, like, wasn't very good, but now they're made with platinum-based silicone, which is really good. I've looked into this story way too goddamn much. I needed you guys to know about it because it's fucking awful. Every second I spent researching this story was a second that I hated myself.
Why do you hate it so much?
It is...
Is it because you can't have a real doll?
Because
I would throw it out the window.
It's so... They're
yeah,
so
it's
expensive.
jealousy.
They're so expensive.
Oh, yeah. The first one was $6,000, right?
Listen, yeah, the first one was $6,000, and that was in 2000.
All right, let me finish school first, then you can get a real doll.
Okay. Deal. So, the thing is that, like, naturally, as anybody who has ever heard about a sex doll, you are curious about sex dolls. As I have been, but nothing, much like my Motley Crue story put me off ever trying heroin, this story has put me off ever trying to buy a real doll. I do not want one. I don't want to look at one. I don't want to know someone who has one because I'm afraid that they're going to maintain a goddamn Twitter feed for them. I don't want that. I don't need that kind of stuff in my life. So that's that.
That's
story.
Dave Cat.
Dave Cat, listen, if you're listening, Dave Cat, I hold no ill will against you
I do.
Personally.
Hold on, I do, and I want to make that
except for that
clear.
bit where you said that organic women were disagreeable. I hold some contempt with that. Because
organic women think that he is disagreeable.
you know, and so I guess the circle of life has taken its course.
People.
And you know, and maybe it's fine then. If he is not into organic women, then organic women have nothing to worry about from Dave Cat. So
I think
thank
I'm coming
you,
around
Dave
to that.
Cat, for understanding who you are and fucking off.
Yeah, I think I agree with that now.
Yeah.
At least he's not subjecting himself to
Right.
people.
Yeah.
Organics.
Yeah. So I got one more. And this one isn't nearly as weird, and this one's it's a little bit, I guess, more heartwarming, I guess.
Oh, no.
So Edith Casas and Victor Cingolani began dating in 2008 after Victor and Johanna, Edith's twin sister, had broken up. Johanna was a model who, on July 16th, 2010, just days before her 20th birthday, died from 2 gunshot wounds to the head. Victor was arrested for the murder, and in 2012 he was convicted. On Valentine's Day, 2013, at a civil registry office in Pico Truncade, Argentina, Edith and Victor got married.
What?
Edith, the twin sister of the woman that Victor allegedly killed.
Wow.
Yes. He was a year into his sentence. He had a 12-year prison sentence, and he was a year into his sentence at this point. And she was like,
true love can't wait.
yeah, let's fucking get married. I can't wait 12 years for you to get out of here.
For killing my sister.
For killing my twin sister. Like, what if he was aiming for her? Yes. Yeah.
Did he actually kill her?
We'll get to that.
Wait, is it I don't want to...
Kill her?
Oh, no.
Edith maintained,
Dun, dun, dun.
the entire time, Edith maintained Victor's innocence. And they planned to file an appeal claiming that Victor was the victim of judicial scandal. So they, it was an uproar in the community, and, they had to find this girl's killer. The ex-boyfriend must have done it. Right?
Well, I would have assumed that, too.
In order to get married to Victor, Edith had to pass a psych evaluation because her mother denied the marriage, claiming that she was mentally unstable. Clearly, for wanting to marry her sister's murderer.
How old was she?
She was 22 at the time that they got married. So,
Why did she need her mother's permission?
excellent question. I don't know. Maybe she just filed some kind of motion to. This was 2013, so she
Pretty
was
recent.
Yeah, I mean, fairly recent. I don't know what Argentina's marriage laws look like, but I can't imagine they're terribly different. But I don't know if she like made some kind of appeal, and then the court just had to look into it because any appeal they have to take seriously, so they have to make him pass a psych evaluation. I don't know. That part I do not know. So during the ceremony, a crowd had gathered outside in order to hurl stones and eggs at Edith on her way out of the civil registry.
I get it.
Her family disowned her, and her father, Valentin Casas...
Wait, they threw stones at her?
Yeah.
That's kind of fucked up.
Right, well, she
Why would they
married
do
her
that?
sister's murderer. Like, he was a convicted killer.
Yeah,
he
but
definitely killed
Rocks
this girl.
hurt.
Yeah. I think that's the idea. And how dare you marry somebody who kills people, have a rock.
Well, those who have not sinned, throw the first stone.
I don't know that they were necessarily
What's
worried
that
so much
say?
about Jesus in that moment.
I guess
I
I
think they
was
just wanted to throw
gonna
rocks.
say that
Yeah.
I've never married my sister's murderer, so I'd feel pretty comfortable throwing shit at her.
That
That's
is
a
true,
great-
yeah.
that's a great
That
point.
is true. I've been alive a long time.
Yeah.
And not
I mean, neither
one
of my
time.
sisters have been murdered, but if they were,
I wouldn't
Almost
throw
definitely.
rocks at the person who married your other sister, I guess. You wouldn't.
I guess, okay,
You're
so
saying
one
you
of
wouldn't
my-
marry your sister's killer?
no, for sure. Almost definitely not.
Oh,
Almost.
Depends on which sister.
I mean, it depends on
honestly.
yeah, well, that's
which
true.
sister,
Yeah.
who kills her.
Yeah.
There are variables here.
So her father, Valentin Casas, went so far as to say, and this is a fucking awesome quote. Quote, "For me, they are both dead. Johanna is with God, and Edith is with the devil."
Damn, true.
Yeah.
That's intense.
Fucking
Damn.
what a great quote, right? Well, later investigators found evidence linking Johanna's boyfriend at the time, Marcos Diaz, and he was convicted in mid-2013, and Victor was subsequently released, being cleared of the
Oh
crime.
no, he didn't kill her.
He didn't kill her, Marcos Diaz did.
Oh no.
So
And
what
I
about
threw
all these
stones
people
at
who threw
her.
rocks?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Everybody was so pissed he didn't even do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, don't throw stones.
Right? Let those
Those
without
who live in
sin
glass houses,
throw the first stone.
I'm always going to throw the first
Those
stone.
in glass houses should dress in the basement or something like that.
Shouldn't throw glass houses, I think. How that
Let those
goes.
without sin throw glass houses.
Yeah, there we
yes.
go. We got it.
So Victor was then released, and the state told him they would not compensate him at all for his wrongful imprisonment. Yeah,
Not at all.
and that's how the
Are
story
they going to frame him
ends.
for murder now? Is this some Stephen Avery shit?
I don't know who Stephen Avery is, but yes, 100% this is some Stephen Avery shit.
That's
But so that's those are my stories. That's my handful
those are
of them.
good stories.
Right?
Wow.
Dave Cat went on longer than I wanted it to. I wanted that to be my short one. I wanted us to
we had a lot of questions.
discuss the dolphin
You
fucker
have
more, but
strong opinions about Dave Cat.
Yeah.
Real dolphin.
Do you want to go
I-
back to the dolphin one? Because I felt like you just
Yeah, we
slid
kinda
into
just
that third
glazed
story.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I was
Marrying
hoping
the
for a
dolphin?
flipper joke, I think, maybe. I don't know. Just anything other than Dave Cat going on as
Flipper
long
of
as it
the
did.
tongue? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. There's not one. There's
Dolphin female?
the dolphin was male.
Well, then that dolphin definitely flipped her over.
I
No.
guess. I guess.
Cut that out. That was horrible.
I was expecting.
So those are my stories. And
I'm sorry you subjected yourself to that.
I'm sorry I subjected the both of you to that.
I'm glad. I was
Yeah.
hoping
Hey,
that's
so-
how you
I've
would
heard
play.
way worse.
I forgive you.
That's nothing.
That's nothing.
Fucking a plastic thing? People do that every
Well,
day.
it's a platinum-based silicone.
Oh,
First of all.
my mistake. Oh, God.
They're more tear resistant. They started using
Oh,
those in 06.
true. Yeah.
I
So
learned
wait, what
way
happens
too
when it
goddamn-
tears? Are you
I
fucking
don't want to
metal?
know. He sends it back to the manufacturer and they fix it for a cost.
He has a warranty
Did he have
on
Yeah.
his...
stitches?
Yes.
How much is the warranty? And
Stitches.
for how long? Is it a lifetime warranty?
Is
And
it like
if so,
30,000
whose life?
miles?
30,000 thrusts.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
It's got a little pedometer in it.
Time to
So-
change the oil.
He sent it back to the manufacturer twice to have the body repaired before they switched to
What
this
was he
platinum
doing to
base.
this poor thing.
Fucking it!
Shit out of it!
Oh!
He apparently just got rough as fuck with it.
Oh, man.
Because twice he had to send it back. It's had 3 bodies since he bought it.
Has he ever been
Wow.
like... She was a little different when she came back.
He makes meta jokes like that constantly.
Really?
Yes.
God.
Yeah.
I think it would be
like on the
so
Twitter
funny
like
if it
feed
wasn't...
for the whatever
So
like
creepy.
either his or like Sidor's. Like Sidor would say like, why don't you just remove your sinuses when my allergies flare up? Like, makes meta jokes like that shit. Like all the time. Oh, listen, we gone on way too long
How
about
much
it.
do you
I
love
just
meta jokes?
what's that?
So much. I would find this so funny if I wasn't so creeped out.
Yes. It's the funniest shit in the world.
I'm definitely gonna
Lars and
follow
the
suit on
real
Twitter,
doll
though.
Maybe
or
that's
real
why I'm
girl or
having,
whatever,
like,
but
This is great. I'm not creeped out at all. This is hilarious.
you heard it here
Joy
first,
just bought one.
first listeners.
I
Joy
literally just
has
bought one
8
today.
real dolls at home. Her entire
Yeah.
life savings spent buying up a bunch
That
of
is why
silicone-based
I'm
dolls.
A real doll
Well,
addiction.
let's stop talking about real dolls now.
I'm not done.
Accessories, warranties. You gotta
Oil
take them to the
changes.
salon every once in a while. Treat yourself, right?
Yeah, right. Treat your real doll.
So, Andy,
No.
please share any story that's not about Dave Cat.
All right. So, I'm gonna give you a little background on the guy that my first story is about first. So he was born in 1877 in Germany. His name was either Karl Tanzler or George Karl Tanzler.
Okay, all right. I know this story, and I fucking love it.
No,
Do
you
you know
love
this,
it?
Enjoy?
No, I didn't tell her
I
anything about
don't
it.
love it. It's fucking weird.
He loves it. Remember that when I tell you all these
Okay.
details. So in 1920, he gets married, and he and his wife have 2 children. They emigrate to the States in 1926, and they eventually settle, after moving around a little bit, they eventually settle in Zephyr Hills, Florida, where his sister has already emigrated to. So a year later, in 1927, he leaves his family behind and moves to Key West to take a job as a radiology technician under the name Karl von Kossel. So he abandons his family, changes his name to a vampire name, and he begins a job as a radiology technician. So that was in 1927. In 1930, in April of 1930, Maria Elena Milagro de Hoyos was brought to the hospital that he worked at by her mother because she was showing some symptoms of tuberculosis. At the hospital, she was diagnosed with tuberculosis, which at the time was a completely fatal disease. There was no cure, no coming back from that, and it had killed most of her immediate family. So at the time, she was legally married, but her husband had left her years before after she suffered from a miscarriage. He moved to Miami, and she never heard from him again. So Tanzler, in his past life in Germany, before he moved to Florida, always spoke about having these visions of the woman he was destined to be with, which I find interesting because he got married and that was not the woman in the visions, and I would have just been very upset with that. Not once I hear the later details, but at the time I would have been upset. But so he is known to say that when she came into the hospital, he was like, "This is the woman from my vision." And she was like,
Okay, this part I don't know, and this
Yeah?
is fucking crazy.
"Oh yeah,
I know the second half of it. I know the part you're about to
Yeah.
tell, I don't know any of this.
Oh
know
yeah, he
either.
had like visions, and he was just like said he had some kind of, what is that called, telekinesis,
Like precognition.
I don't know. Is that where you move things?
Precognition.
Oh, wait.
That's what I mean.
Oh,
Wait.
telekinesis is when you move
When you
things
move
with your
things,
mind.
that's not it.
Precognition is when you can see the
Wait.
future.
Hold on.
All right.
It's coming.
Should we edit this part out? How
Nope.
long is it going to come to you?
It might be a while. You know what? Just keep going.
All right. Just shout it out when you think of what you were gonna say.
just in the middle
Okay,
in the middle of
gotcha.
a sentence.
The
Yeah.
next story I want you
Yeah.
to just. So yeah, so he had that, and so he would have these visions of this woman. They were pretty vague. She had like long dark hair, and she was beautiful, which is like the woman all of us want to be with. So
Well, I mean, yeah, several of them even.
yeah, organic or not. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
organic, synthetic, a mix of both. Who cares?
Yeah. So, so he sees her. She's the woman from his vision. He falls in love with her, or obsessed, which is like what I prefer to think of it as. I do not think that is love, but whatever. So,
Well, when you've dreamed about a woman for as long as he has,
yeah, it's obsession.
it's obsession.
Yeah, over a
Before you've even met her.
non-being. So Tansler, with his self-professed medical knowledge, so I just want to make that clear, that he did not have like the kind of medical training necessary for the next few years of his life. He attempted to treat and cure Maria with a variety of medicines that just came to him. And then he also used like x-ray and electrical equipment on her that he brought to her house. So like at this point, she's not even coming back to the hospital,
She's just at
Right.
home.
dying of
It's
tuberculosis,
those,
trying to live out her last few months in peace.
Those house visits, you know, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, her husband's not home, so.
Right. So he, is doing like these house calls. The whole time he's doing this, I mean, he's also like giving her gifts. He's like professing his love to her constantly. There's no evidence that she ever reciprocated. But her parents like went along with it because he was giving her free, medical attention.
Right.
So despite his best efforts, though, she dies of tuberculosis on October 25th. Tansler commissioned the construction of an above-ground mausoleum in Key West, which he visited
Shut up.
every single night.
That's creepy.
All right.
Okay.
That's the end of the background information. So
Oh.
Now the story proper.
buckle
Okay.
in. So he
This is
visits
the
her.
bit. This is the bit that I know.
Yes.
Then. Oh God.
So he visits her every night. He would often sit at her grave and sing Spanish songs to her, at which point her spirit would show up and sit with him
Of course.
as he sang
Naturally.
Spanish songs to her corpse. And then her spirit would tell him that he needed to take her corpse home with him.
Yep.
So
That
finally,
would be the next step, obviously.
finally in 1990, oh sorry, I knew I was going to say that. 1933, Carl dug up her body, put her in a toy wagon, and brought her home. So I just want everybody to sit in that vision of her in like a little red wagon, probably. I don't
Right,
know.
arms dangling onto the
squeaky.
sidewalk, like.
Yeah.
Dark
Yeah.
out. It's foggy.
Yeah. She did not deserve this.
Okay.
He placed her corpse in his bed, where she, quote unquote, lived from then on,
Obvious
and began
decision.
the process of preserving it.
Does he have just a bunch of lie around his house? Just
Well,
taking home
this
dead
might have been
bodies?
before body sniffing dogs.
Bodies.
You know, like you didn't
Yeah.
need the lime because
You're right.
you know they just didn't have a canine unit in Florida at that time. So yeah, that's fucking horrific though. I her in the wagon is what's fucking me up.
I think what's
Yeah,
getting
that
me
is-
is I'm just picturing him sitting like on her grave with like both his legs off to one side just singing to her in his shitty Spanish.
Right, he's got his, like, nylon string, like,
Yeah.
classical
And then
guitar.
he's like, her spirit is like ghosting behind him.
mi
Yeah. This
amor,
is like American Horror Story kind of stuff.
This is. So he begins the preservation process, right? So her skin is decomposing. So he removes it and replaces it with silk cloth soaked in wax and plaster.
He removes her skin.
Well, I mean, most of it had decomposed at that point, so he just kind of had to, like, clean it
Yeah,
out.
it was just
I
what was
imagine.
left, basically.
I've never taxidermied a person,
Okay.
or an animal, or anything, but that's how I imagine it works, after it's already started decomposing. So, yes, as the hair starts falling out, he fashions a wig from her hair that her mother collected from her body and gave to him after her burial in 1931. Yeah.
Nope!
Yep.
Nope, I'm out, Tansler. I'm out.
But
We're done.
He then filled her corpse's like abdominal and like chest area with rags to keep the original form, to keep the form, supple.
Yep. Plus, it's got that give to it that you want.
yeah.
Yeah.
It made me throw it. No, I'm good. Okay. He then dressed her corpse in her clothes, put some jewelry on her, gloves on her hands, and then her body just stayed on his bed. According to the Wikipedia article I got this from, he used, quote, copious amounts of perfume, disinfectants, and preserving agents to mask the odor and to forestall the effects of the corpse's decomposition. So that was just the worst smelling house.
It would
See,
have to be.
wouldn't it be better if he just had a real doll?
You know what? I
Right?
hate so much how it keeps coming back to that. I regret every decision that led me
You
to
asked
writing
for
that
this.
story.
You did. So that was in 1933. So 7 years later, in 1940, her sister hears rumors that he's got this body in her house
No.
and confronts him at his home, where she discovers her sister's body
No.
still in his bed.
It's been 7. Where's he been sleeping?
God.
In his bed.
No.
The love of his life.
No. 7 years.
7 years.
Not 7 days.
No.
Not, hey, I went to
7
go
minutes.
visit my sister at the mausoleum an hour and a half ago, and she wasn't there. Do you have any information? 7 years!
Mm-hmm.
Did no one visit her? Nobody visited her.
Must have been like coming out of that house. Like,
Oh, yeah.
Well, no.
He couldn't have had
perfumes and
neighbors,
oils
right?
gotta take care of.
He used so many disinfectants. Just like Clorox wipes on her plaster and wax.
ew.
Yeah. So
That's so gross.
You
naturally,
still think it's better than a real doll?
What?
What? No, this
real,
whole
real
time-
doll is better.
yeah, real dolls
Yeah,
better.
a
Yeah,
real
better.
doll is better than
Yeah.
fucking a corpse, right? Like
Ugh.
So
that corpse was alive at some point. Real dolls are computers.
So, computers. So her sister notifies the authorities, of course, and he's arrested and detained.
Good.
They examine him for mental wellness and decide
Right.
that he's mentally competent to stand trial. So after a preliminary hearing in October of 1940, he is released because the statute of limitations has expired.
But it was ongoing for.
Wow.
The charge was for maliciously destroying a grave and removing a body without authorization. And that happened 7 years
What
prior.
about abuse of a corpse?
Well, so that's the thing, is where I was going next.
Because he didn't abuse it, because he fucking took care of it.
No. So there are two notable rumors that have never been confirmed about this story. So after they found her body after 7 years in his house,
Yeah.
they put her corpse on display
Okay.
before she went back to the mausoleum.
Okay.
So people came and looked, and her body was inspected and all that. It wasn't for 30 more years that somebody claimed that there was a tube inserted into her vagina so that he could have sex with her. So because nobody brought it up initially and it didn't happen, it didn't come out for 30 years, that it's never been proven, and it's just considered a rumor. And there's like implied necrophilia, but he never admitted to it, and probably, I want to say probably he did, but there's no proof that he ever did. It doesn't look like he did.
I just want
Have
to go
sex
on
with her
record
corpse.
as saying I regret picking this as a theme.
You guys turned it dark.
Yeah. I really hope that yours are lighter.
It's not about necrophilia.
Good.
So,
Okay. All right. Good.
There's the plus.
The last notable rumor about this story, because he went on to just live a regular life. He wrote
course he
some
did.
books. Just
As you do.
Yeah.
You know.
a last notable rumor that obviously has never been proven but also never been disproven is that he at one point switched her body with another corpse so that when they removed it, her body was still there. And people say that when he died with the corpse in his arms, but official records say that he died in the house alone on the floor and was not found for several days.
Did anybody fuck his body?
Joy Zader asking the real questions. Tonight
These
is
are the
11.
questions that I want answers to.
I didn't want half the story we just got. I was content with he had visions that this was the love of his life, and that's the end. Weird
No.
love.
The
They
end.
found each other through a dream.
Nope. You got
Ugh.
corpse fucking instead.
Every time. It's always corpse fucking.
What I really wanted to research for this one was serial killers who got married in prison. Mm-hmm. But first of all, that happens way more often than you would think.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even that weird at this point. And I just kept getting too freaked out. This, I feel like, is like far enough removed for me. It sounds so absurd that in my head it's not real. But like, somebody married Ted Bundy. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
And like, that's a real person to me. So, I don't know. I couldn't do it. I couldn't stomach it.
Yeah. I could see how you couldn't stomach that, but you could stomach the story that you just told us.
I don't know. It's the interesting ways in which my mind works. I can block out what I want to. So that's it. That's all for that one. My next one is a little more adorable.
Oh, good. I'm happy to hear that.
So I'm afraid I'm going to mispronounce her name. But it is, I think it's Asia Rita Berliner Mauer.
That sounds correct.
Berliner Mauer is German for Berlin Wall.
Oh, okay. Okay.
She was named after the Berlin Wall.
Wait
This is a
for it.
weird love story, and I will have you know that
Wait, I'm just
she,
trying to get
at
this-
7 years old, fell in love with the Berlin Wall after seeing it on television. She started collecting
Yep.
pictures of the wall and saving up for visits to see it. So throughout her lifetime, she visited it multiple times. On her 6th visit in 1979, they got married.
She got married to the wall?
And that is why her last name is Berliner Mauer.
Yep. That
Wow.
it's
her last name is
hyphenated.
Berlin Wall. She's quoted as saying about the wall, "I find long, slim things with horizontal lines very sexy."
So what you want to do?
Want things with horizontal
What you want
lines.
to do is just paint some stripes on your dick.
She's not into people, and the idea to her,
But
the idea
a
of being
stripy dick.
well, so yeah, she's not interested in people. The idea of being with a person to her is like very absurd. She said so that was
Unacceptable.
never going to happen, no matter how long and horizontal liney you were.
I feel like though, if you're gonna fall in love with like a man-made structure, like something more phallic like the Eiffel Tower makes more sense to me, I guess.
Yeah. Did anybody marry the Eiffel Tower?
Yeah, actually,
Really?
it's one that I looked into. Yeah,
That is a gorgeous piece of art. I get it.
It is.
what a
The Berlin
beautiful
Wall.
steel dick.
Yeah, see, when I picture the Berlin Wall, I'm just picturing, like, graffiti and, like...
Yeah.
Yeah, and David Hasselhoff single-handedly taking it down.
Exactly.
And, yeah.
So unfortunately, the marriage only lasted 10 years because, as we all
no.
know, in 1989 the wall was torn down.
Oh, she's
did
widowed.
She take it to the courts and be like, my husband
No,
was
but
murdered."
while the rest of
Wrongful
the
death
world
case.
while the rest of the world celebrated, she mourned that they, quote, mutilated my husband.
Oh, wow.
How sad is that?
That's pretty sad.
I mean,
That is
very
actually
sad,
a little bit
right?
sad.
Like,
Everybody's like,
Mutilated
"Yay,
my
Berlin
husband."
is free," and she's like,
My
"Darling,
husband, yeah.
darling, say something."
But it can't because it's a wall. This is the story
It's
I was
like talking
referring.
to a wall. Yeah.
No, this is the story I was referring to. When in my head I kept calling the Berlin Wall he because she always calls it he.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But so she was diagnosed before the wedding with objectum sexuality,
Mhm.
which is how I knew about that earlier.
Yep.
About the Great Wall of China, she said, quote, "It's attractive, but too thick. My husband is sexier."
It sounds
does
like
she have sex with the wall?
No.
What does she
So
do?
that was
she
part of
sits
the
on top
article.
of it and just sort of scoots.
No, part of the article I read was that she mentioned that she was a virgin with humans, but she was very connected to her husband.
Yeah, she fucked the wall. She done fucked the wall. She just found like a particularly jutty piece of brick, and she just went to
Oh
town.
my god, ow.
Yeah, I'm in so much pain right now just thinking about it. It's not a completely sad ending though, because according to the Telegraph, where I got this article, she has shifted her affections to a nearby garden fence.
Ooh.
You moved on awful quick. He's not even
Quick!
dead.
That was in 1989. It's 2018. I didn't check the date of the article, so let's assume it was written this year.
Still, the Berlin Wall is not dead per se.
It was mutilated. That's
It
what she
was
said.
horribly mutilated, but there's still a section of it that stands. So,
Okay, I just
so
wanna
she's
know-
cheating on her husband with a garden fence.
I'm going to ask you this real quick. If I were to be ripped in half, but part of me was just left here, would you still remain faithful to that piece of me? Because that's what you're asking her to do with this wall.
Which piece is it?
Oh, you know what? This is a fight we're having later.
We'll have it off the pot. Okay.
So that's my second story. So my third one is about, it's from 1946. It's about Anna and Boris. I didn't write their last name down for some reason.
Anna and Boris.
But in 1946, they were married in the Soviet Union. They spent 3 magical days together before he had to leave to rejoin his unit in the army. Upon returning home to their hometown, she was nowhere to be found. Her whole family had left, and no matter how he searched, he could not find her. So he moved on with his life, and he eventually exhausted all of his options and avenues, and he got remarried. In reality, what happened is Anna and her family had been exiled by the government. She left with her parents and often talked about killing herself because she was so upset to leave her husband. She almost attempted suicide once, but her mom talked her out of it, and then eventually talked her into remarrying also, telling her that if Boris loved her, he would have written, but he hadn't. so he didn't.
He didn't know her forwarding address.
I think her mom was just trying to talk her into marrying somebody.
I guess.
The truth was not very important here. After the fall of the Soviet Union, Anna was able to go back to her hometown. So when she did, she was in her 80s. So while she was on her return visit outside of her house, she saw a car coming down the street that parked, and a man got out. And it was Boris.
What?
And they saw each other, and they knew instantly
Holy shit.
that it was each other.
Get out of town.
Yes. Instantly they recognized each other. Both of their new spouses had since passed, so they remarried after Boris talked her into it, because she was against it at first. She was like, what's the point? We're so old. And then he was like, nah.
Love.
Yeah, so they get remarried. They got remarried.
Bitch. I
They're
ain't
never
gonna
gonna
stop loving
loving
you.
bitch.
Bitch.
Yeah. Anna was quoted as saying, "Since we found each other again, I swear we haven't had a single quarrel. We've been parted for so long, and who knows how much is left for us, so we just don't want to lose time on arguing."
Wow.
Yeah. So the last update I could find from them was 2013. So
They're dead.
probably.
Well,
they
but
were in their
then,
80s.
they spend every
The first,
wonderful second together
because
until
the earliest article I found from it was from 2003, and then there was another article. No, sorry, 2008, and there was another article in 2013. Yeah, I think that's right. That was essentially just the same details rehashed. There was nothing new, so probably they're dead now. But what a nice story,
Right.
That is a nice story. A great story.
Is that
Very uplifting.
is that how you're ending, or you
Yep.
have a tragic one to fucking bring us down on?
No, I thought I would start with the worst and then with the best.
Oh, good. Hey, I'm glad that you did that, because I did not. Well, Joy, you've got a couple to share with us.
All right. First of all, not as good as yours.
Well, I've also been doing this. This is my 9th episode.
Okay.
So
So
He's
you got
kind of
little
a pro now.
practice.
I don't want to brag, but I am probably the best now
Of any podcaster ever.
of anybody doing
I would
anything
say.
ever.
I can't argue with that. Honestly.
Thank you.
All right, so first story. Let me set the scene for you. Here.
Mhm.
Okay, we're in the UK.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
we're walking down the street.
Mhm.
You see a walker with some feet. You see another person right next to him. All right, so one of those people, her name's Edna. She's 79, and she thinks knitting is great exercise. And the second person right next to her is her 39-year-old husband, Simon.
Oh,
Oh,
good.
man.
Okay.
So Simon is half her age. This is age gap love, people. All right, so Simon and Edna, they are both very fond of the organ, okay? They met
which,
the
like the pipe organ.
organ.
Okay.
pipe organ.
Specifically
Yeah,
the heart.
not the state. Not the organ ducts. None of that. Okay. So they're both fond of the organ, and they have their first kiss at an organ recital.
Oh, that is
Romantic.
so romantic, though.
Adorable.
Edna says, it was love at first sight.
Where'd they meet?
They met at
Organ
Organ?
recital.
They met through mutual friends.
Organ
of
Players
the Organ
Incorporated.
Community.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? There's an organ community.
Who knew?
That is the craziest
I'm
part
not
of the story.
familiar with pipe organ culture, but
Organ.
Imagine
is there a
being
lot of age gap
Simon
love there?
and somebody's like, you've been single for a minute. I think I know the perfect woman for you. Let me just set you
Here's
up.
the thing about Simon. He's 30
It's
at the
my
time
grandmother.
they meet.
Like,
He's 30 when they
He's
meet.
30 when they meet.
So she's 70.
Yeah. Never kissed a girl. Never been with a girl before.
what is this? The
Simon
40-year-old
character.
virgin? Is he played by Steve Carell?
Oh my goodness.
Not quite. Close. So, here's the thing about them. Edna and Simon are at it like rabbits.
What?
Oh my
Apparently.
Oh
God.
man. Oh
All
no.
the time, they
I
say.
bet. Classic
time.
Simon.
And here's a classic Edna quote right here. This is so Edna. Simon knows very well how to reduce me to a trembling jelly.
Oh, Jesus!
The organ.
No!
Yes.
Oh, my
Love
God.
the organ, okay? And this, this all circles back around to this age gap love. You got your 2 vagina gal, your 2 dick guy. They were 13 years apart,
Yeah. And now we got...
They weren't 40 years apart.
Hey, love is love.
I
Sometimes
guess.
you're 40 years apart. Sometimes you're fucking a robot. Sometimes you're fucking a dolphin. It doesn't...
But I guess.
Love is
Yeah.
love,
Or a corpse.
But you know what? Here's the thing about Simon and Edna. Okay, so Simon has some health problems.
Oh, no.
He has
Oh,
a
no.
smaller heart. He has a smaller liver, etc.
It's to make room for his giant dong.
Giant. When I say giant, I
Oh my
mean
God!
giant.
Wait, is this a real thing? Are you doing a bit right now? Or are you about to tell me his schlong is enormous?
It's enormous.
Oh my God!
Wow. Well, if
I'm
one of
sure.
your organs has to be oversized, you want to do
All
that.
of
Yeah.
the extra room in his body. Everything had to shrink.
Every ounce of matter
In
went into his
order.
cock.
Exactly. Anyways, all right, so Simon has these health problems. So he ages a lot faster. So neither
Like
one
Big?
of them has what?
Like Tom Hanks in Big?
Never
haven't
seen
seen
it.
No,
that.
okay,
No.
no. Classic 80s film. All right, I'm the only one. All right, go on. I'm old. Go
All right,
on.
so he's got these health issues. Yeah, there's a 40-year age gap, but neither one of them has a lot of time left. And Edna says that she's not leaving this world without him. How cute.
They're gonna die
terrifying.
holding
They're
each
gonna
other like
die
a
of old
notebook.
age together.
She's going to kill him right before she dies.
Oh,
Right, like,
Of course.
Simon, are you awake? Oh my God, you're dead. And like blow her brains
Yeah.
out. Yeah. Like,
Exactly.
they're not dying without the other.
no. They're in love.
Andy just showed me a picture of this, and I regret looking.
Why? Honestly, it looks
Is
like
it
Because
Edna
that
and
looks
Simon?
like my...
That's them, right?
It looks like my grandma Esther.
That's Edna and Simon.
And I just can't.
Oh, look up the picture of the sweater she knitted him.
What?
Yeah, well, that's what she does for exercise.
It is.
So
Knitting is great exercise. Okay?
it really keeps her fingers nimble, so that way she doesn't get all arthritic around when she's giving him his handies.
Oh, God.
She made him a dick sweater.
A dick sweater?
Yeah.
Like a sweater for his dick, or a sweater with a dick on it?
Both.
Oh,
She's
Nice.
very talented.
It sounds
She's
like
been knitting
it.
for a long time.
like forever.
She's been knitting for a schlong time. Nobody for that joke. That's fine.
No,
It was
it's good.
okay.
It's good. That's a good joke.
Listen, this is my
stars.
show. I just
All right.
appreciate when people laugh at my jokes.
I googled Edna and Simon Martin dick sweater, and Bill Cosby came up. So
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
So
it's
she
just sweater
actually
with Bill
knit
Cosby.
him a dick sweater. I was
Ah,
You know-
well, that was on my Google search history.
It's gonna be there forever.
I'm so upset right now. How do you delete your history? Should I know how to do
How do you
that?
delete someone else's comment?
Damn it. What a
Oh my
fool.
gosh.
Okay, so
Okay.
that's Simon and Edna.
Simon and Edna.
Okay.
I'll miss them.
Now, for my second story, here's the thing about this story. There's no names in this story.
Oh,
I don't know anything about this except for the fact that somebody told it to me.
Okay.
So here we go. All right. Brand new couple. They fell in love, of course, classically.
Right.
And they decided that they were going to wait until marriage to have sex. Let's call these two people Bobby and Sue.
Bobby and Sue.
Bobby
are
and
nice
Sue,
names.
classic. All right, Bobby and Sue. They've never had sex with anybody before in their life.
Okay.
No organics, no robots,
No synthetics.
no dolphins,
Let's
no
just move
corpses,
past
nothing. No dick sweaters have been knitted for Bobby at all. So they decide to get married, and they're trying to get pregnant because they want children for some fucking reason.
Right.
That's where they went wrong.
Right? So they keep going to the doctor, and they're like, what is going on? Why aren't we getting pregnant? I don't understand. No. And so after going to the doctor multiple times, the gynecologist asked Sue, like, okay, so I need to know exactly what you're doing.
Right.
Okay?
Give me the play-by-play.
So, here's the thing. Bobby and Sue. Apparently, Bobby had a tiny penis.
Right.
And he was trying to put it in her urethra because neither one of them
Oh, my God.
has ever had sex before. And this is what the education system is doing.
Yeah, I was just about to say, when did this happen? But it doesn't even matter because, like, it could have happened this year.
If it happened in America, it could have happened any time between now and the beginning of time.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so
that's what you get, small dick Bobby. That's them's the breaks.
Here's the question. Why do people not have sex so they get married?
Right.
Right?
Because he's trying to fucking put it in people's urethra, and they're like, I'm not cool with that.
And so he's like, all right,
stay away from my urethra.
And then he goes and, like, fucks off. And then, like, finds somebody else. And he's like, can I stick my dick in your urethra? And they're like, no, Bobby, god damn it.
Here's another thing. It's probably for the best that was happening. Do you want them to have children?
No.
You know,
these are exactly the people who should not be having children.
Oh my God.
I don't know that anybody should.
Agreed.
True.
Because I know lots of people, dozens, one might even say, and I would say about 30% of those people have kids, and I'm like, you are the one that, like, I found passed out, like, in an alleyway one time, like, when we, like, tried to close down a bar, and you have a fucking 2-year-old now. Why? How? With whom? These are the questions that I both want and don't want the answers to.
I know exactly how you feel.
Stressed out about this.
All the dumb people. Anyways.
This makes me think of, like, it might have been a BuzzFeed video or something. I don't know. I spent a lot of time on the internet. But it basically had, like, a picture, like, a labeled drawing of, like, vulva and the vagina and then, like, the ovaries and uterus. And they had, like, men, like, cisgender men, write in, label all the parts of it.
Right.
And it was just, like, one part was just, like, generally pointing to the vulva.
I'm gonna name
and the
this
guy
one
was like,
Samantha. And
he was like, this is the vagina, right? And then he's like, I don't know what all the little parts of the vagina are, though. And then it was just, like, it was horrible. And then,
these
like,
are the flaps.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then this is the cave. And this here is called the dungle.
Yeah, well, and then, that was a big part of it, is, like, almost every guy was like, wait, women have urethras?
Where do they think we'd be at?
The vagina. Yeah.
Did you ever see that episode of Orange is the New Black? Where, like, the one prisoner didn't, the inmate didn't realize that, like, it comes out of a whole other hole.
Yeah. I had a friend in high school who, I used to get really annoyed because, like, she went through so many tampons in a day that she would always run out of them, and I'd always have to give her my extra tampons, and it was just, like, annoying because that shit's not cheap. And, like, finally one time I was like, you gotta chill. Like, you can wear those a little longer, you know what I mean? Or
right, your
flow's
going, not that heavy.
Like, if you're going through them, you're wearing the wrong size, whatever. Yeah. And so, eventually the conversation culminated into, she took out her tampon every time she peed so that she didn't piss into her tampon. Because she also thought that pee came from her vagina.
What?
Yeah. I know. We were, like, juniors in high school when I had to explain this to her. Yeah.
Where's the sex education, my friend?
That was in third quarter. This was second quarter junior year.
Oh.
So, you know, you only get it the once, and if you miss anything, good luck. Good luck out there in the real world.
I do remember my high school health class being like, as liberal as possible as it could be for a small town Ohio. But I do also remember we spent a long time on the digestive system, to the point where, like, even now when I eat things, I imagine it going through, like,
Right, but you can't name all the parts of a vagina.
Well, no, I can. But...
Well, okay, all right, listen, for the walls, for the joke.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is I don't remember, like, I remember going over birth control, like, one day, you know, like, really quickly. And then, like, no, I don't even remember going over, like, male reproductive systems at all. I don't even remember that.
It's a penis.
Like
Next slide.
Yeah.
That's what
yours
it was.
Abstinence?
Just abstinence.
My health teacher was, like, pretty dope. So she was just, like, a renegade teacher. Did what she wanted. Yeah.
You got a good one.
Yeah.
She
went through,
Everybody
like...
pick up your books.
She went through,
throw
like...
them across the room. Stand on your desks. Everybody on your desk.
We were really lucky. Like, we learned about, like, dental dams even. And, like, female condoms. We learned about all the different kind of birth control. It was actually very good. It was comprehensive. But I do know that we spent a very small amount of time on sexual health as opposed to the rest of our health class. Spent a long time on the food pyramid, and then they, like, got rid of that entirely.
Yeah.
It was a food stepping stone thing later, wasn't it?
Turn the pyramid upside down.
Yeah, there you go.
Just eat butter.
Just eat butter.
I think they use that My Plate
This
thing
episode
now.
of Anti-Fiction sponsored by butter.
Dope.
And real dolls.
No! Listen, if Pornhub wants to sponsor us, I'm cool with it.
Not Real Dolls?
If Real Doll
You don't
wants,
want that
no,
Real
it's
Doll
fine.
money?
Listen, if Real Doll wants to sponsor us,
need
I'm
better
fine with
mics.
it. If Dave Cat wants to sponsor us, you can
Hello,
fuck
Dave
right
Cat,
off.
if you're out there listening to this,
Please sponsor us.
sponsor
Don't
him.
listen to him. We need new mics.
No, listen, he's got to save up for his next Real Doll.
We
He
could
can't
use
be
that
spending
thing.
his money
Afford a
willy-nilly.
sponsor.
He's looking to buy 5.
Yeah.
That's no joke. That's part of the interview.
mean,
You can read
they're
all of
not
that
girls.
online. Just give Dave Cat a Google search.
That just reminded
It's
me. I pulled up
literally the
Maria's
worst.
picture if you guys wanted to look at her.
Yeah, let me
Okay.
see his picture.
Maria, that's her.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
That's her.
horrific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's her.
What?
That's post-mortem.
Encased in wax and plaster circa 1940.
Yeah.
That's creepy.
Mm-hmm. Well, so do you have one more,
Nope,
Joy?
that's it.
That's
'cause
it?
I suck.
Do you want to talk about, what is it, Rose and...
You want to talk about our neighbors?
Yeah.
All
That's
right,
some weird
so-
love. I really do.
Listen,
we talked
what if
about
your
it
neighbors
before.
listen to this podcast?
That's not they don't know their
they
names.
for sure don't. And if they do, if they are listening, stop being weird.
That's not, what do you guys call them, Rose and...
Okay, so Rose, let me try to paint the picture. Okay, so Rose is like, I want to say she's 5'4", okay, thin, older woman, looks maybe in her 50s. She's got longer, to her shoulders, white hair, missing one tooth, eyes are always very red and glossy.
Well, it's alcoholism,
Yeah,
probably.
probably.
Meth addiction, you know?
You know, I thought meth. I'm not very familiar with all the drugs. You know, I'm.
Probably heroin from where we live.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Dayton's the heroin superhighway. So,
All right, so that's Rose. Darren is about 5'1", 5'2" on a good day. He's got a giant belly. He wears one shirt and one shirt only, and that is a dirty as fuck Reds t-shirt. Like, never washes it, whatever. We hear these people fighting all the time.
the end.
I don't know what else to say. Okay,
Yeah.
so, yeah, we don't know if they're mother and son or if they're married or both. I really don't know.
Who knows? Yeah, one of them.
My favorite
Son
part about
husbands.
this was the car thing in front
Okay,
of your
so he
window.
parks out. We live Our patio overlooks, like, the parking lot. So he parks in the spot right in front of our patio in his disgusting, like, old piece of shit car where, like, you can see it's so rusted, you can see the ground below.
Oh, good. That's probably safe.
Yeah, it's super safe.
Yeah.
But
It's the last thing you
He just-
stomp on the brake and then your foot just goes all the way through
Yeah.
and then hits the highway.
he's got a cooler in there that I think he just, I don't know what he does, but he just sits out there and stares straight ahead into our apartment.
It's better than
Forever.
TBS.
Yeah, it's fucking weird.
Pours himself a Bacardi and Coke and like, oh man, she's making eggs again.
Yeah.
It's like everybody loves Raymond.
Maybe he does think that he's watching TV. He's like so
He's coked
high
out of his
or
mind
whatever.
and like, yeah, like, and, you know, I mean, he's got his fucking cooler full of God knows what booze and body parts and
Yeah.
who knows what's in there? It's got a padlock on it. Nobody knows.
All right, so real quick, Drew's gonna hop on here because
Oh,
he looks like he's
welcome,
teeming with information
No,
about
I
these two.
We talk about Rose and Darren every day. Rose and Darren aren't even their names. We don't even know their names. We just made up the names Rose and Darren of what to call them when they do something on any given day. They cook the weirdest stuff because our hallway smells different every single day. It's always different and it's always bad. So it's like the worst smells ever. But yeah, we hear them fighting and threatening to get restraining orders on each other pretty regularly, arguing over $3
Holy
trinkets
shit, wait,
in the apartment.
these aren't like the people that I heard that night screaming at each other across the street
No,
from
no,
your
no,
apartment.
no. Those are other people that apparently don't live there anymore because they don't do that anymore. But
All right, stay
no,
classy,
these are our
Centerville.
direct neighbors in our building. But yeah, they're very strange, very strange people. We try to avoid them at all costs.
Hold on, what were you saying? They argue over $3.
Oh, well, we came home one night and apparently Darren had used something of Rose's, some possession of hers, some commodity he had used, and it was valued at $3 because they were arguing about it.
I'm
She
just
was
imagining fucking like The Price is Right, and they're like going at it on stage,
$3, Bob.
and they're like, "You win."
no, he
and
used
like the curtain pulls back, and it's Darren and Rose arguing.
Oh yeah, he used something of hers that cost about $3 because she was very upset that he used it, and then he argued that it was only worth $3. But the principle to her was not to touch her stuff. That's really the point she was trying to get across. It all culminated in her threatening to get a restraining order on him, and then he proceeded to go sit in his car for the rest of the night and stare into our apartment. So
What you don't hear through the window though is that like his windows are all the way up and he's just blasting Sound of Silence. It's just, hello,
No,
darkness, my old friend.
he's surprisingly very quiet by himself when he's in his car.
Just sits inside.
He just sits there and walks back and forth from the apartment. So
Wow.
that's Rose and Darren. Again, we don't know their real names. So.
Joy's third weird love story. The secret hidden gem. We'll put it after the credits like Marvel movies.
That's what we were talking about when you came in.
What was that?
That Rose and Darren.
Oh, nice. Well, I tell you what, that'll do it for this week of Anti-Fiction. Thank you guys for being on the show today. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, anytime. And listeners, you can always follow us on Twitter and Instagram at AntiFictionCast. You can email us suggestions for themes and stories. You can send me hate mail. I'm fine with that too. I won't respond, but I'll read it, and I'll cry silently in my car while I look into Joy and Drew's apartment. But thank you very much for listening, and we will see you next week.